Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, whatever time you catch this video. Hey, how you doing today? I hope everyone is doing well. So today I'm going to show you how I make photo rolling trays. You can use whatever image you like. I'll show you the products that I use, how to do it, how to mix epoxy. But make sure you all like and subscribe. I'm here to help whenever you need me. So if it's something that I didn't cover, just leave comments down below. I'll be sure to leave everything in the description box and just let me know. Alright, as usual here, I have it all set up so you can see exactly what we'll need to make the rolling tray. This is kind of going to be a duplicate almost of my first video, except this time we're doing the image rolling tray. So this is the image that I chose. I printed it off on my printer. I believe this is HP photo paper, and I just found the image on Google, so you can Google free images or free Bob Marley images and use whichever one you like. So of course I have paintbrush, I got the lighter, I got my cutouts here that I'm using for the lighter, jar, and ashtray. Spray paint, I'm using red. My podge, this is the epoxy from Michaels. Jar from Hobby Lobby, it was $1.99. This is actually a tea light candle holder that I'm using as an ashtray. And like I said before, you're really just, using what you can. It's not gonna always say ashtray, you just gotta go with it. And these are my cups that I'm using to pour my 2 parts of epoxy. I got a face mask and gloves that I'll be using to spread my epoxy. And of course the tray from Dollar Tree. And I also included a ruler this time because a lot of people have been asking how big or small do I make the images. So I'll show you how I measured that. While my tray is drying under the fan, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do the jar, ashtray, and lighter. I'm actually not going to put an image on the lighter or the ashtray because I want to put the leaves on them instead, but I am going to add an image to the jar lid, but I'm going to spray paint it first, the color that I want. So on the lighter, I'll be putting the leaves, just placing them on. Then I'll seal it with triple thick shortly. Then for the ashtray, I'll apply lead to the bottom. You can do it on the inside or the outside, but I like to do it this way. Everyone makes their trays and accessories different, so it's totally up to you of how you make your items, but I'm just showing how I do mine. And I'm going to put 2 on the inside, on the side, and make sure it's flat. And 420 is approaching, so these will be fun to sell around that time, besides t-shirts. And a lot of people have been asking what type of machine that I use. I only use a Silhouette Cameo, and I still use a Silhouette Cameo 2. I have used a 3, but I have not gotten a 4 yet because the Cameo 2 still works just as well. Okay, I'm gonna spray paint my lid for the jar, then I'll be right back. Alright, the lid is taking a little longer to dry, so we'll move along to the tray. So this is how I measure for my image from one corner to the next. So before it hits the crease, it's really at 9 inches and going down about 6, but I'll make the image probably about 8.8 to 5.7 inches. You can also make it smaller if you like. totally up to you. So what I do next, and like I said, everyone makes their products different, but this is how I do mine, and it always works for me. So I just take my Mod Podge and I put it on the back of the image over the whole thing. And again, this is HP photo paper, and I have an inkjet printer. So I do not put a lot, I just do light layers. One light layer. Wipe off the excess. Flip it over. And I got a little bit on the front, but that is okay. It's gonna dry. And lay flat. Like so. And just wipe off the Mod Podge. You can use your fingertip or a napkin. The Mod Podge just peeking around the corners from under the image. I want to dab a little bit of this off. It's gonna dry clear anyway. So you can let it dry. I usually let it dry for about 20 to 30 minutes before I apply my coat of epoxy. So that's how it'll look once you put the image. And a lot of people do go ahead and put a layer of Mod Podge on the top, which I do not, because me just applying the epoxy of the image, it doesn't ruin it and it still works the same. So like I said before, everybody makes theirs different. Some people put 2, 3, 4 coats of Mod Podge, but it's no need in doing that when it'll work the first time, especially if you buy the right kind of paper. So we're gonna let this dry, then I'll show you all how I apply the epoxy. And a lot of people still have an issue with epoxy because they think it's so hard, but all you have to do is make sure that you put 2 equal parts, 2 different cups, mix them together really well, and pour a thin layer. If you put too much, it's gonna take way too long for it to dry. So we'll be applying the epoxy as soon as this is ready. My jar lid is now dry, so I just take a thin layer of Mod Podge to apply to it all the way around to seal the paint so it won't chip or scratch off. And also with the rolling tray, I do not spray paint the bottom. I do not do anything to the bottom of the tray. I saw you all kept asking about if I spray paint or design the bottom as well. I do not. I just leave it as is. I leave it silver like it is when I bought it out the store. Alright, so that's how it looks once you apply the Mod Podge. And like I said before, it will dry clear, so you won't have to worry about it being white or anything like that. So I'll go ahead and put the image too, so everything can go ahead and dry at the same time. So I just cut out a little circle image to match the tray, and I'm going to apply it to the top like so. And I'm going to place it under the fan so it can dry faster. And I'm going to apply epoxy to the lid as well. And also with the lid, you really don't have to use epoxy. Most times I use triple thick, and it'll seal the image the same. But I believe I'll just put epoxy to give it like a really shiny effect. So as you saw in the previous video, before this, of how I mixed the epoxy. So now I'm just going to apply a thin layer, bring out the shine and the design. So I'm going to pour it on like that. And some of you were asking if I can just use a paintbrush instead of rubbing it with the glove. If you use a paintbrush, I still haven't found a way to clean the epoxy from the brush, and I've ruined too many brushes using epoxy. So I decided to do it this way instead, and it will not seep through the glove. When I take the glove off, there's no epoxy on my hands. And the epoxy, there is not a strong smell. I know a lot of people, you know, talk about how the smell is strong and wear this and wear that when you apply the epoxy. You can just wear a face mask if you want, especially if you're not in a closed-in area. So yes, this is how I'm applying it, and I do take it around the sides like so, so that the paint will be sealed in around all edges. And if you get those little bubbles, you can get a heat gun or a blow dryer to get rid of the bubbles. I know some people use a straw and they just blow through the straw if they don't have either one. But this is how it looks. This is how I'm doing my image. Some people do Mod Podge the top of the image before they apply the epoxy, but this is my way of doing it, and it always works for me. So everyone is different. Everyone does not craft the same. So this is my tray I picked up from Dollar Tree for $1. The jars from Hobby Lobby, $1.99, and they do have them 50% off every other week. You can also find the jars anywhere else, but you want to make sure it seals tightly. And I got the tea light candle holders from Hobby Lobby that I use for my, and I'll actually show you how it looks, how the container looks. So once I rub all edges with the epoxy, some areas need a little more, so I'll pour just a little more on there. Because like I said, if you put too much, I've experienced where it never dries, and I've run a lot of trays trying to learn how to use the epoxy correctly. So if you lay your tray on a flat surface, and I actually use a space heater, because also if you're in a cold room and you leave the tray in a cold room, I've noticed that it really won't dry, or it'll take even longer. It's supposed to take 24 hours, but sometimes it's dry in way less than 24 hours, about 12 to 18 hours. But like I said, I just plug up my space heater, and it's good to go the next day. Alright, so that's how it looks once you apply the epoxy. And with the epoxy, it's going to harden the surface where you won't even feel the image under it. Also, when you apply words, you won't feel the words once you apply a layer of epoxy on top of it. So that's how it looks. And I'll show you how I do the jar lid in just a moment. Alright, with the lid, I'm gonna put just a few droplets of the epoxy on top, not a lot. And this epoxy is FDA compliant, so it's safe to use on this item. Alright, so once this is dried, tomorrow I'm just going to add triple thick around the sides. Although I have sealed it with my podge, I still want to put the triple thick around the sides so that it'll have a more shiny effect. And I'm not putting epoxy because it's hard to prop this up anywhere without the epoxy getting on everything. So yes, that's how it looks. Once you're done with your image, it's gonna harden, and I'll show you how it'll look once it's dry. So once the image is dry, this is how it'll look. Shiny, smooth surface, everything sealed. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Just don't forget, if there's something I left out, you can ask your questions in the comments. I try my best to cover everything as possible. I'll have another video coming up in just a few days, and hopefully that'll be our last rolling tray video. But if it's something else that y'all want to learn how to do with rolling trays, just let me know. I'm just ready to move on to the fun stuff, because I do make t-shirts and tutus, party decorations, and a lot more. So don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I'll talk to y'all soon.